I never used to believe that silence could drive someone insane. I used to crave it, the kind of stillness that only comes at 3 in the morning when the world outside feels like it's holding its breath. I thought moving into my own apartment would finally give me that kind of peace. The place was perfect for someone like me, a one-bedroom on the edge of the city, tucked between 2 old brick buildings. It was cheap, clean enough, and most importantly, quiet. At least, it was at first. The noises started during the second week. Not loud noises, not the kind that make you jump, but the kind that linger, faint enough that you second-guess yourself. It began as a dull scratching behind the walls. At first, I thought it was just mice. The building was old after all, but the sound didn't match that. It was too rhythmic, too deliberate, like someone dragging a fingernail along the inside of the drywall. I tried to ignore it. I'd put on headphones, turn up some music, but every night, when the world quieted down, I'd hear it again. Squirch. Pause. Squirch. Always at the same time, around 2:17 a.m. I started keeping track, writing it down in a little notebook I kept beside my bed. The entries piled up faster than I expected. When I finally mentioned it to my landlord, he gave me the usual shrug. "Old buildings make noise," he said. He didn't even write anything down. Just told me to set a trap if it bothered me that much. But that night, as I was trying to fall asleep, I noticed something new. The scratching wasn't behind the wall anymore. It was inside the apartment. It was faint, but I could hear it coming from the corner near my closet. I turned on my bedside lamp, heart pounding, scanning every inch of that wall. Nothing. Still, I could feel it, that wrongness in the air, the kind of tension that makes your body react before your brain does. I stayed awake until sunrise, too afraid to close my eyes. The next morning, I saw my neighbor in the hallway for the first time. She lived directly next to me, short woman, mid-40s, with deep circles under her eyes. She looked like she hadn't slept in years. I asked if she ever heard strange noises at night. She froze mid-step, then glanced around like she was checking if anyone else was listening. Her voice was quiet when she finally spoke. "Don't knock on the walls," she said. Then she walked off. That night, I didn't sleep at all. By the end of the 3rd week, I was losing it. The scratching was louder, faster. Sometimes it sounded like tapping, sometimes like breathing. And then one night, it changed. No scratching, no whispering, just a single, deliberate knock. Knock. It came from inside the wall, right beside my headboard. I froze, eyes wide open in the dark. My pulse was so loud I could barely hear the silence that followed. Then knock. Knock. This time, it came from the wall at the foot of the bed. I don't know what possessed me to do it. Maybe curiosity, maybe insanity, but I lifted my hand and gently knocked back. One time, the silence stretched on for what felt like hours. I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. But then knock, knock, knock. 3 slow taps in reply. I didn't move the rest of the night. By now, I wasn't just scared. I was obsessed. I started staying up every night, waiting for it, recording it. I set my phone on the nightstand and hit record at 2 a.m. every night for 2 weeks. When I played the recordings back, most of them were silent, except for one. In it, you could faintly hear breathing. Not mine, slow, steady breathing, right before the knocks began. I didn't tell anyone about that recording. I deleted it after listening once, but I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was behind those walls was listening to me, too. I stopped going to work. My friends stopped calling. My sleep schedule disappeared. My life started to revolve around 2:17 a.m. The moment the house came alive. And then something happened that I still can't explain. Last night, the sound didn't come from the wall. It came from inside the closet. A quiet whisper, just one word. It said my name. At first, I thought I'd imagined it. But then it said it again. Clearer. Louder. Daniel. I dropped my phone. The screen cracked on the floor as I backed into the corner, trembling. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body wouldn't move. I stood there, staring at that dark line under the closet door until the first hint of sunlight crept through the window. When I finally found the courage to open it, nothing was there. No one was inside. No hole, no entry, no explanation. Just silence. The kind I used to crave. But now, I know silence isn't peace. It's what comes before the noise. I didn't go to work for 3 days after that night. I told my boss I had the flu, but the truth was, I couldn't bring myself to leave the apartment. I didn't want to. Every sound, every creak, every drip from the sink felt like a clue. The more I listened, the more I convinced myself that someone or something was living inside the walls. I started tearing the place apart. I moved the furniture, pulled up the carpets, pressed my ear to every inch of the drywall. When that didn't help, I went out and bought one of those cheap endoscope cameras, the kind used for plumbing repairs. I drilled the first hole behind my bed. My hands were shaking so badly, I nearly dropped the camera. I slid the lens inside and held my breath. Dust, wood, pipes, nothing unusual. But when I pushed it further in, I saw something. It looked like a small, folded piece of paper wedged between the beams. I pulled the camera back out and started chipping away at the plaster with a screwdriver until I could reach it. It was a note, crumpled, yellowed with age. There were only 4 words written on it, in shaky handwriting. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I sat at my kitchen table, turning that note over and over, wondering what it meant. Who was them? And why was the paper inside the wall? I almost called the police, but what would I even say? Hey, I found a creepy note in my wall, and something whispers my name at night. They'd think I was insane. So instead, I started digging. I went to the local library, one of the few places that still had physical archives of city records. I looked up the building's history. Built in 1963. Originally a 3-story apartment block, but the top floor had been sealed off after a structural incident. There were no other details. But then I found something else. A newspaper clipping from 1988. Local man missing from East Hollow Apartments. Neighbors report strange sounds prior to disappearance. The man's name was Raymond Hale. Apartment 2B, my apartment. When I got home that evening, I noticed it immediately. A faint, sour smell coming from the bedroom. It wasn't there before. It reminded me of old wood, mixed with something metallic, like rust or blood. The scratching started again at 2:17 a.m., sharp. Only this time, it didn't stop after a few minutes. It went on and on, building faster and louder until it sounded like something thrashing inside the wall. I ran to the breaker box and killed the power. The apartment went completely dark, except for the faint glow of the city outside. I stood there in silence, waiting. Then came the knock. 3 taps, slow, deliberate, right behind me. I turned around and whispered, "Who are you?" The sound stopped. I don't remember falling asleep. All I remember is waking up on the floor the next morning with dried blood under my fingernails and 3 small holes dug into the drywall where I must have clawed at it during the night. Later that day, I ran into my neighbor again, the same woman who warned me not to knock. She looked worse than before. Her eyes darted around like a trapped animal's, and her hands were trembling as she tried to unlock her door. I asked her about the note, about the man who went missing. She froze. "You shouldn't be digging into that." "Why not?" I said. "Something's wrong in this building." "You've heard it too, haven't you?" Her eyes filled with tears. "You can't listen to them," she whispered. "That's how they find you." Before I could ask what she meant, she shut her door in my face. That night, I played back the old audio recordings I'd made from the nights before. Most of them were still blank, but when I slowed down one of the files from 2 nights ago, I noticed something strange beneath the static. There was faint talking, not just whispers. Words. I boosted the audio and played it again through my headphones. He's listening now. He's close. He's one of us. My hands were shaking so badly, I dropped the phone. I deleted the recording immediately, but it didn't matter, because the moment I turned off the lights to go to bed, I heard the same voices again, not through my phone this time, but through the walls. By the 4th week, I'd stopped sleeping completely. My mind was slipping, I knew it. I'd catch glimpses of movement in my peripheral vision, hear footsteps behind me when the hallway was empty, but nothing compared to the mirror. It was early morning, just before sunrise. I was standing in the bathroom, staring at my reflection, trying to convince myself I wasn't losing my mind. And then, in the reflection, I saw someone standing behind me. I spun around, heart pounding, no one there. But when I looked back in the mirror, the figure was still there. Pale, thin, standing in the corner, head tilted, and its lips were moving. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read them. Over and over it mouthed. That night, the noise came back louder than ever. Not just scratching anymore, but pounding. It shook the whole room. I pressed my hands against the wall, screaming at it to stop, but it didn't. Then, suddenly, it went silent. And I realized something: the silence wasn't complete. Because underneath it, faint but steady, I could hear breathing right on the other side of the wall.